วัสดีเจ้า I'm Pim Kemasinki, editor of City Life Chiang Mai, and welcome back to my daybed. I'm here today with a really, really dear friend of mine, Taruna Simonetta Gatto. So she is not probably, the most adventurous person I've ever met in my whole entire life.
I'm sure.
You are.
No.
We've been friends for about 3-4 years now, and I've just been listening to her stories of adventure her whole life, and I'm blown away. So just a teaser. Taruna, we're going to call you Taruna.
Yeah.
Because we'll explain why later.
Okay.
She traveled to how many countries?
With the dog, I think it was 32, 35.
35 countries. She
With one
traveled
dog.
With one dog called Africa. It's just an adorable.
Over 50 by myself, maybe
Yeah.
60 or something. But with
that dog.
35.
Mostly illegally as well. Yeah. Anyway, so why don't you just give us a little bit of a background? Who are you? You know.
Well, I am Italian by passport and conditioning. Although I was born in what was called Rhodesia, this big colony of the British Empire that was made of Zambia and Zimbabwe. And then, but my brother got a virus, a lethal virus, so my parents had to move back to Italy. So I grew up, but some grandparents were in South Africa. So I grew up studying in Italy, but going for the holidays to my grandparents. So I was up and down from Africa, and then later when I grew up, I had an accident in my foot, and
still struggling with that.
I'm still struggling with it, and so the Italians wanted to cut. I had various operations, and so I decided to go and check the doctors in South Africa, which at that time were very, very, very important, with Barnard, the heart surgeon. It was like,
oh really?
Yeah, it was.
So that's when you moved to South Africa.
So then I went and looked for doctors. I found one, and then by the time everything happened, I was working there, and I was studying to learn English, and I was studying interior design. And so when I came out, because I was Italian, young, with a lot of flair and taste, I immediately landed a fantastic job with a very high and interior design firm.
Yeah, you led like quite the high life in South Africa, didn't you? She was telling me about monthly parties with like how many people?
The 6 monthly was at least 500 people.
Yeah, and big bands and famous, So you really did live the good life in South Africa.
And I did actually. I also won an award for the home show of the year.
Oh.
I decorated one of the houses because they built this suburb, and the new architects one house, and all the interior decorators, decorated them. And I won the prize, so I ended up on all the things, and I then opened the shop in the Hyde Park Corner, which was the richest suburb in the Southern Hemisphere. All the Oppenheimers and everything there. And so I opened this interior design studio on the opening day, I organized, we are in the depth of apartheid, right?
Yeah. When was this?
This was, I must have opened this shop in the early 80s, I can't remember. And so I organized this opening where all the newspapers and everybody arrived with this very pretty little girl, white in lingerie. It was they were living in the front window, right? With all this super stylish Italian furniture that I just imported. And the studio was there, so it was all like a studio with some objects.
Right.
So I invited all the important architects and everybody, and the press. And on the window, leaving this very expensive there was the opening sequence was the girl in lingerie, with him with unbuttoned jeans, playing the guitar, drinking Cointreau, the blackest guy I could find, huge, tall, super sexy.
Oh my!
And the girl, and then it all moved into a dinner scene where the servant was a white person.
Did that not piss off some people?
That ended up being, the newspaper, which was my idea, and so it was like a hit right away.
Because you then got very involved in the anti-apartheid
This happened
movement.
later, because by then in this interior design, I was like living the high life. We all talked about apartheid, but we weren't thinking it could, what to do. But then I left the interior designing, I got bored, and so I started doing film, and then in the film crew, I hit all the artists and subversives, and and all the politically involved and the real Afrikaners, you know, and there I was politicized. I became heavily politicized.
So tell us about that. Tell us about how you got really involved with the politics.
Well, I don't know. You know, it started by, you know, the blacks could not sleep in the town, so they had to go out unless they had a pass. So I started letting them sleep, a few sleeping in my house, even though it was dangerous. You could get in for it. And then I remember, for example, I got so far that I went to one UNISA, was this massive trade union rally, but an entire stadium. We must have been 5 or 6 white people, and I was one of them, and I got a little bit like...
I remember I had a awful, I think he was a pedophile, great uncle, who lived in South Africa, and he invited us one year to go and stay with him.
Yeah,
that was probably about the same time, and we were told, you know, Dad could stay with him, Mum and I would have to stay in the coloured hotel.
Really?
I know, and we were just like,
God,
not going.
True.
Yeah, it was so weird.
Wow,
like we just couldn't understand it, you know, couldn't comprehend it. So tell us, you know, you got involved in elections and stuff as well, right?
So then later, when the election started, they asked me if I wanted to work, because they couldn't trust the electoral system that had been run in the previous elections.
Right.
Because it was run by white people that were, you know, so they had to
So when
set
was
up
this? What year?
1994.
94, okay.
So
okay, much later.
Yeah, much later.
Yeah.
I went away and I came back.
Right.
I went to Africa and I came back. But at that stage, they needed trustable white people, and that were good to run offices, etc., to set up this whole new system.
To help with the transition.
No, it was how to run the election.
Well, how to run the election.
Yeah, it was. We were running the election. All these new areas had to be opened up for the election.
Was Mandela involved with that one? Was he?
That's when That's when he got elected.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you helped get Mandela elected.
So I got asked to work in a particular department. We were in charge of the monitors of 3 provinces, and I was the assistant in the main office of Johannesburg, and I had 2 bosses. They were always in the 3 provinces trying to set up the offices, recruit the people, train them, blah, blah, blah. But everything that was done needed an approval from the main office. So it all passed through me, and it was up to me to approve everything from contracts to, you know, phones to whatever. And I entered when there was a room with some phone on the floor, nothing. So I had to source everything from the cars, the computer, for everybody and everything.
Who were you working for?
For the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission.
Right.
So that was a 6 months work, and it was very taxing, and everything happened in the middle. And then so it happened that at the end of this, finally all the problems are resolved, because now we are voting. And so I went to work feeling very upset that I couldn't be in the street with the public, right? That I had to sit at work. Meantime, my 2 bosses were in the regions and everybody was voting, and all my monitors were busy. So they couldn't phone me with problems like they had done.
So you're just sitting there?
So I thought, I'm going to just sit there, and I got very upset. So I borrowed a little black and white TV, and I walked into my office with a black and white TV, and all the things had been taken off from the ceiling. There were these waterfalls of telephone wires with, I don't know, 50 telephones around it, and another waterfall there, like full on. The whole thing was full of telephone wires with telephones on the floor. And everybody panicking because everything was going wrong in the voting stations.
Why?
Everything. There was no, in some of them there was no special ink, or there was no special paper, or there was no special no ballot papers, or there was no pen, or there were no monitors, or it was locked, or there was no
So
key.
it wasn't well organized then?
No, it wasn't at all. I did the monitors, the others did the organization, and I don't know. You know, mine was the monitoring directorate. They were the organizational directorate.
So what
they had
happened?
6 months like me.
Yeah.
So what happened was that they set us there to answer this phone and call anybody you got. So I called all the Italian consulate, the Italian trade office, come here and help. Nobody knows anything. So they're just answering the phone. They eventually gave us all a piece of paper to write what. You put it in a box, and this box disappeared. And after a while, you know me, I'm curious, and like, where is this going? So I follow the box, and it's going behind a kind of partition. There is a mountain of this thing that are becoming bigger, and nobody can do anything with it because...
These were the ballots?
These were the complaints of the people on the ground that could not run the elections because these things were not being solved.
So what happened?
So then I realized, oh my God, and from that moment I didn't send the things through in the piece of paper. I solved the problem. So at one point, for example, there was one voting station where, a lot of things were missing. And there was I understood that there was a possible bloodbath because they were waiting for a long time and it wasn't open, this and that and the other. And this is the first apartheid, election.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of anger and tension and thinking who's going to cuckoo and everything. So then I organized this Puma helicopter to drop the ballots, to bring it directly there, right? And it took me a while. And so I did this kind of organization because by then I knew everybody in the building. I had been organizing stuff for 6 months. So I knew exactly.
All last minute. Like,
this is what is happening with the monitor. Don't put down the phone. I'm going to solve this problem. Just wait. And then going up to the third, 20th floor. I need this paper. Where is the guy? No, he's over there. So, and I need this paper signed. And coming back. Come here. I'm here. Just wait. And the guy, running.
Jesus. So
and then eventually, through all these phone calls, I started realizing that 3 small Bantustans, which were the black, what were before in the apartheid time, these black, let's call them reserves, little states, they had never had an election before.
Yeah.
They weren't having one now. They had no papers. They were the places which had been decided it was the ballot place. It was ruins or it didn't exist. Like it was completely. It hadn't been organized.
That's terrible.
In 6 months.
Yeah.
So I started running everywhere, and I understood this, and I got several calls from the same area. So I understood this is a big problem because these 3 provinces can close the election.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I started panicking. And so I remember going everywhere, nobody was giving me the time of day, also because it was like the last day of the election. It was 3-day election. So I don't remember when I started realizing, the day before the last day, but the last day I was panicking and going everywhere. And nobody was giving me because it was almost over.
Yeah.
And so I remember at one point I'm standing there with all my things, and there's the group of the top people at the IEC.
Yeah.
And I've just begged them, and they're like, and they closed between themselves, and they kind of, what to do, it's over, Gatto, just give it up, And in that
how
moment...
many votes are we talking about? 3 provinces.
So here we are still voting.
Yeah.
There is no stuff for voting. So then they decided, the speaker comes out and the clerk says, these 3 black provinces did not get an election, so I'm extending the election by 1 day, confident that the IEC can solve the problem. This comes out of the speakers. These guys turn around and say, Gatto.
Was it you?
Yeah, it was you. No, I had just been begging them, right? And I was right there. So he said, Gatto, you've been doing on to it from the beginning. You organize it. Get yourself a task force and solve it through the night. In one night, what a whole directorate of people didn't do for 6 months. And I didn't have the context. I didn't even understand. But I'm clever.
You're very clever.
So I decided, you know what? I've got monitors everywhere. So I can find out, like, in the provinces, there were no ballots, there were no papers, there was no ink, there was no this, there was no that. So I can get all these papers and stuff by collecting them where they are left over.
Yes.
Of course, it was the thinking was good, but of course, the election being over, all my monitors were drinking, so it was very difficult to get hold of them.
Oh my God.
But eventually, so I was running around, so I got my task force and I got them, I gave them. But then I was going around to get permits, the usual story. And following me, there was this one guy, and I didn't know who he was, and I had no time to ask him. So he was just following me, and I was going from one office to the other. And then I was waking up like 2 o'clock in the night. So we've got all this, there are a lot of stuff here. Where can we go? Map, okay. There's a military airport here. Okay, let's go. Phone number. Phone the guy at home. Hey, Lieutenant, we need you to open the military airport. What? When? Who are you? What? You want to be responsible for that? For the election or not? I don't have time to get the permission. You just open the helicopter. I need a Dakota plane to do this.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were, of course, at the end, after much Italian fighting, they opened up. And this guy was following me. So it came a point like about 6 o'clock in the morning where all the planes, at one point I even got all these taxis. I had a line of like maybe 50 taxis, and I'm downstairs like at dawn, loading these taxis with all these ballot papers, sending them to an airport so that they can go here, they can go there. And I got Red Cross planes, military planes, any transport I could think of, I would like get it. And so at the point where the taxis were gone and everybody was in the air, I like sat down and this guy is sitting in front of me and I go, but who are you? He says, I'm the UN person for the overseeing the
Yeah.
election. So he's the UN branch of the whole thing. And so he said to me, well, and so why are you following me around? Because I'm just amazed at the way you work. And,
This little puppy.
and then he said, if this happened for the voting, even more shit is going to happen for the counting. So I want you to organize an entirely new system, independent of what has been organized until now,
Oh my
because it's going to fail. So we need another system in place for setting up to count the votes, right? To verify these votes. So I had to source the room by making sure there was no, microphone or anything.
Right.
And so we became, I think, one of 32 people in the whole country that could go inside, including my team of workers, because we had to find the real votes. And so basically it happened that it was all very complicated. And while Mandela was being, crowned at the Carlton Center behind me, I was the only one in my office still looking for votes. Because
And you weren't drunk. Not yet.
no, I was looking for the votes that got him elected.
And did you get acknowledged for all this?
I got acknowledged. I got a merit award for the selfless dedication to the cause of.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how Taruna Simonetta Gatto got Nelson Mandela elected. So that was a good start.
Helped in a good way.
Yeah. That's
I did my
amazing.
bid. I did my bid.
Yeah, so she did all this highfalutin stuff in South Africa, and then the next thing you know, you're schlepping across Mozambique and the heart of darkness with a dog.
Well, then
Tell us how that came about.
I went to a concert in Zimbabwe and a possibility to see my home again, right? And so I left with my little dog.
Well, tell us a little bit about the little dog. Come on.
So I got at one point I got my little dog while I'm now working for the film industry. I got a little dog, and
Called Africa.
I called her Africa from this band that was called Via
With a K.
Africa with a K, because it was my favorite African rock band. And
So Africa was what, you thought 4 years old, three,
I don't
four,
know.
five,
She
something?
was not that old.
No.
She was 1 or 2, but
Okay, so she was a couple of years old. So you went to see this band.
with the dog. That was an incredible dog by then already, because she never walked with a leash. I was too busy always to carry her with a leash. She came with me on set every day. So she learned how never to walk in front of camera, never make a noise, how to be friendly. I was also doing films, 2-year productions.
Yeah.
So she would get to know the crew members and one point we have this massive scene, like 2,000 extras fighting a ring in the center of the world, and I lose her, and there are these painted people in this society in the center of the world fighting in a ring, and I'm panicking because she could be trampled, somebody could take her, and so I go up, I look on a perch, and I see the director's crane.
Yeah. And she's on it all. Bless her. That's wonderful.
Silhouette, all the smoke and colors.
Oh, that's so cute.
So sweet.
Babe.
I know.
Oh, anyway,
So
let's get to the
then we
travel.
went to Zimbabwe, and then my production was cancelled, and I had the address of some important anti-apartheid heroes that were living in Mozambique then. This is before Mandela was elected. It was still apartheid, and so I thought I had this extra time. Somebody offered me a lift to Beira. Somebody told me it was possible to get a plane from Beira to Maputo, where these people were, and from Maputo to Johannesburg would have been easy. So I went.
With Africa.
And then, of course, when I arrive in Beira, all the airports are bombed, and I'm in a war. There are no airplanes to Mozambique. Nobody's seen a tourist. I was the 6th tourist in a year. Nobody's ever seen this kind of dog. So they all thought it was a goat or a monkey or a mixture of a rabbit, or they don't quite know what. But eventually, everybody wanted to eat it, so they thought it was a goat also. So I had to have I tried desperately to get this veterinary certificate to say that it's a dog, and it belongs to me.
Yes, please don't eat my dog.
Nobody can eat this or take it away.
Oh my God.
So basically, I'm in Beira, and I'm now and I am this film lady, right? High society, da da da, with my gone to Zimbabwe for a party, basically. So with all my party gear. And now I'm in a war. There isn't even food, or there's nowhere, really war.
Yeah.
15 years.
Proper war, yeah.
And I can't move out, and I can't phone home because there was one phone in the post office, one like that, and never get the international call. So I decided I have to try to get to Maputo, towards South Africa, by using local
By land,
transport.
yeah.
And that's when I discovered traveling local land port. And in that situation, nobody had seen a tourist, so everybody was helping. And then somewhere in the middle, I had to get that paper from the veterinary. So I struggled to find that veterinary. He was like, "Oh, who are you?" and this and that. So he made me wait in his office. And then these two people arrived. One had this camera with the bulb. And the other one had a notebook. And I was like, and they speak in Portuguese, which I'm just learning. I'm just speaking Italian with an S at the end. And
So they interview you.
so they interview me. I had no idea what's really happening, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I tell them that, of course, I'm not I'm anti-apartheid because I'm scared that my South African will make me into a spy
yes.
and all of that, right? So they make all these notes, and there is it. I get my papers. I try to leave the town. I do leave, but then somehow I can't manage to get out of the country, so I'm forced to come back. And when I come back, I go to eat something, and people know you don't pay, and then the drink, no, you don't pay, and then at my door, tuk, 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 and the women are bringing me beer, they're bringing me presents, and I don't know what the fuck is going on.
What's going
And
on?
then I was staying at this point with an NGO. Then the NGO got upset because he heard, look, those are poor prostitutes. What are you doing with the prostitutes? I'm here, like he was part of the Communist Party, I don't know what. And so it turns out that everybody read this article, which was on the front page of this tiny little Mozambican newspaper.
Yeah.
And the whole of Mozambique fell in love with us.
Oh.
Truly. So for the next 3 months, I even on the furthest province, Simonetta, and then you turn and there's this guy, I was shaving 3 months ago, I read this and I said, I want to meet and you're here. Oh!
In Africa? They
In
didn't want
Africa,
to eat
yeah,
Africa?
in Africa, no. They want to give me pigs and legs, and what do I do with the leg of pig? Take me home, present me to the wife, and yeah, and everybody going, yeah. And then somebody even gave me like a bale of money tied together. Yeah, I have to go because they got like, and I wanted to leave, and at one point I got the convoy, a military convoy to leave, and some people looked at my map and they started going, oh, but you have to be here, and this is so beautiful, and there, and they were like, oh, the Mozambique that they love, and they couldn't travel, and they were saying, come on, maybe I know somebody there, maybe he can put you up, and maybe there is something.
So you just ended up traveling?
And so I ended up traveling because it was so, and in the meantime, the war, the this, and all the coincidences, and I'm traveling by hitchhiking, military airplane, Dakotas, going to the military airplane place, and then speaking to militaries, and then...
How dangerous was all this?
I probably very much dangerous, yeah, but I felt protected because everything kind of...
Because you were a celebrity.
Yes!
But then after you left Mozambique, you
So
did
then what
continue.
happened is that in the meantime, I couldn't phone my parents. So my parents phoned the embassy. So the embassy started trailing me. And so they actually followed all my movements until a certain port.
I got lost in Africa. My parents had to chase me through embassies. That was West Africa. So naughty.
They got me up until a certain port. And then I left that port on a Dakota plane, organized at the last second. And like a few hours later, it was bombed. So they told my parents that I was dead, because presumed dead, because it's been bombed, there is nothing. And this. Meantime, a month and a half later, somebody stops me somewhere else, tells me I have to speak on the radio with the Italian ambassador. And then I opened up a little school for children affected by the war.
So at this point, you're just like, you just left everything behind and you were just going, you in Africa, into the, wherever.
Yes.
So where did you go? What did you do?
And then eventually I was forced to leave Malawi because I didn't have a visa and everything. And I went to Malawi, from Mozambique to Malawi. And there I could have got back to South Africa. But then, having survived this whole Mozambican thing, I thought I could become the first white woman to cross Africa on her own.
Yes.
And then because in Malawi there was this lake with the ancient steamers, I thought there must be steamers in the other big lakes, right? So if I get to those lakes, then I can cross big distances across the lake with a steamer.
Yes.
That was my thinking. So because there was a kind of tourist route, but they were going through Tanzania, Kenya, you know.
Yeah.
Me, I wanted to go all the way to basically Uganda and then go to Zaire, take the Congo and cross the Sahara. So I do all this, the lakes and this, and very, very complicated and all alone with my dog, and now completely out of the tourist for anybody because I don't have a guidebook, I only have a map, so I don't know where I am after times.
God.
And you know, you hitch a truck, they leave you in some place in a town, you don't know, you could be outside on the outskirts,
I don't know
or
how
you
you
could
did
be
it.
in the center, where are the hotels, how do you find a hotel? So, and all with all the money around you, right?
And Africa was not
Africa.
exactly a vicious hound.
No, no.
I mean, she was a tiny little thing.
Attracting attention.
And didn't people even ask you if that was your husband?
Yeah,
If
lots
Africa
of
was
people.
your husband?
People thought that me and Africa.
That's so weird.
Almost every night I had to, you know, entertain a long conversation as to why I wouldn't want to
Be raped.
not be raped, but go to bed with someone, right? And at the end of, no, I'm not a racist, I'm not here, I'm just, my husband is over there, and I'm just like, I don't want it. And they go, because you and the dog, oh, that's why you don't want to come with me. But then I got to the Congo, there was a cholera epidemic, so I couldn't go through summer. And then I went east, and then I turned back into South Africa. But by then, of course, South Africa was too small for me. And I couldn't go back to the film industry.
Right.
It was like, even morally, I couldn't.
How long was that journey in total?
2 years.
2 years.
Over 2 years. And I learned about Mandela being released. I had hitchhiked this bakkie from Mombasa to Nairobi. And at one point, I'll always remember, it was incredible. The road is straight east to west. There was the sunset on the road, and a big tusker, a big elephant, crossed the road. And so me and the driver, we got out of the car to look at this beautiful sight, you know, and the radio was still on. And Mandela got released in that moment when I was seeing the big tusker walk free across the road over the sunset. I thought, oh my God.
That must have been a moment, right?
So of course I thought, okay, I'm going back to South Africa now.
So what were the highlights, perhaps, of that trip, or the lowlights, or things that you really took?
We want to know a big adventure.
Yeah.
So going back to South Africa, I get, I'm going on the East African coast. And the idea is I go back into Mozambique, and then from there, I go back to Maputo, or back to Malawi.
Yeah.
Somehow, because Mozambique by now I feel like. So as I might make myself to the last village before Mozambique, no white person had been there for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And so that night I was robbed of everything. Documents, money, they left the camera, they didn't take a camera, but they took all the documents and money. And now I'm in trouble because it took me 3 weeks from Dar es Salaam. And so who has the money to go? These people in the village, right? In a real faraway village, they don't have the money to pay for the boat and the buses.
No, God no.
And so I can't go into, so what to do? And so I remember after the robbing, on the beach, there was this long line of people, basically everybody from all the nearby villages. They came and stood on the line in front of me to give, to make me understand that they were really sorry for me.
Oh.
And on the beach, they went, all of them, you go in Mozambique or you're going back to Dar es Salaam? And I didn't know because I had nothing. I had no food, I had nothing.
Jesus.
So then for a while I stood in this village and everybody fed me. And then the police there, they found the smugglers, 5-meter boat, going to Mozambique. And they gave me a Commonwealth paper saying that they had seen my passport, which they had.
Yeah.
And that it had been stolen, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then they give me 11. So I say, great.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving in the morning in this 5-meter dhow with 11 people, all of them Muslims. And I'm given by these lovely people from the village a plastic bag full of 11 fried dumplings with sugar. So it's now like 4 o'clock in the morning. So by lunchtime, in the boat under the sun, and I've been told it's a one-day boat trip.
Yeah. You couldn't let anyone know that
No,
Africa
because
was
they
the
are
boat.
Muslims, so it's very, very bad for a Muslim to touch a dog or something.
So you had to hide
So
Africa.
Africa was hidden, and I was, but I thought it was one day. And Africa was not hidden. Africa was in a wicker basket, locked inside.
Right.
So they wouldn't touch her.
Right.
But they knew she was there.
Ah, okay.
And so come lunchtime, I open my little thing and I give one little to everyone, and that's it. I'm thinking we will be home tonight. We were in that sea for 4 nights and 5 days, no food whatsoever. Some people, they had the rice, so we put rice with seawater because we couldn't land because of the war in Mozambique.
Oh my God.
So they didn't have any oars. So basically we were waiting
for the wind. Okay.
Sometimes at lunchtime, the captain would jump in the water and kind of swim, pushing the boat a little
my
forward.
God.
Otherwise, nothing. Standing like this with the cloth. And the water was what they had brought, because mine finished almost, in this, the white thing from the fishermen, completely filthy.
Yeah.
And I sort of food this rice with the thing. And so eventually in the middle of the night, we land somewhere. Of course, none of these people speak any...
No.
But I speak a little Swahili, so whatever, but I'm not a god. I don't speak a lot. So anyway, we somehow make it through the forest to this little opening where all these naked guys are roasting fish. So they kind of push the guys out, my guys, and they take over the fire, and they throw an octopus. They give me a tentacle full of charcoal. Maybe the best meal in my life. I couldn't believe. All of us were almost crying.
Oh, God.
And so then at the end, we eventually jumped back. Then we went back to the boat. The boat wasn't there. So now we are all in a panic, including the other passengers with their, contraband.
Yeah.
And but the boat actually had moved to another place of the island, but it took us a while to understand. So there was a lot of panic in the night, and then walking. I don't know why we walking and through the trampling the forest.
I don't know how you did it.
Then finally we jump back into the boat, and we arrive in this beach, and it all happens really fast. And then it's like we can hear the drumming. It's night, and we hear the drumming in the village. And it's a beautiful little bay with all the huts and everything, but scary because of also. And I'm with these contraband people, and they go from shadow to shadow because the people know that somebody arriving by boat comes from Tanzania and will have some goods, right? So you have to be careful not to be taken. So it was like all going from one shadow, and me, I've got like my rucksack, my shoes, the dog, everything. And I'm trying to what is happening? Oh my God. In the middle of nowhere. I don't even know where I am. And
Jesus.
And then June. And then we finally reached, because of course they had some kind of relation. And we arrive in this house, and all these kids look what's inside my wicker basket. And then they start going around that, we're going to eat meat, singing, we're going to eat meat.
No! What did you do?
Of course I explained, no, you can't. And so then somebody managed to give me the hut for that weren't there.
Yeah,
so I stayed
and then,
there.
I remember the rest of that. My God. So this is just the 2 years that you went around Africa with Africa, right? I don't even know. There's no way we can cover everything in your life. Taruna then joined a cult.
And I became a pilot.
Oh, and she became a pilot.
Yes, because at one point I thought I was going to be a bush pilot in the middle of Africa, delivering essential medicines and all these kind of things. But
yeah. And then you went to India.
And then I went to India and I fell in love with Asia. Yeah.
And she joined Osho.
And I did another massive journey, which was from India, the whole of India, into Nepal, and then I hitchhiked across the whole of Tibet, which was prohibited. So I
think you're the first white woman to have ever done that, surely.
Well, there were other, Alexander McNeil and all of that, but in modern times.
In modern times,
yeah. And dressed as a Tibetan because I couldn't be seen, and hitchhiking in forbidden territory at 5,000 square meter above sea level, and then down into the Taklamakan area, always with Africa, of course, with me. And are all around it. Also the south part, which was completely off the map for tourists, over the Karakoram highways, mountains, into Pakistan, and then eventually return to India. So that
Well,
was another 2 years.
That was another 2 years. But can you tell them about your priest? Go on.
At one point, I met this Italian priest, a Buddhist priest. I'm going into Lhasa. He was going into Lhasa to, run away from the tour which he had joined to get in order to join, to study in this monastery further down. And he had been a monk for a long time, and he was very sweet. And he had a double room. I was a bit broke, so he offered me the bedroom, and yeah.
So as he was praying and doing other things,
So we would have sex, and then the alarm would go on because he had a set number of prayers that he had to give at certain times.
naughty.
So we would do it, and then ding dong, and then he would get up, and all of a sudden, and sit over there, and ding dong dong, I'm like all naked.
And she wrote in her diary at the time that, as I said farewell and he went off into the Tibetan monastery, she said, what a waste of a glorious dick.
It was a glorious dick.
So, Taruna, tell them about let's talk about Mount Kailash and also about Africa, finding out about Africa.
Yes.
That was extraordinary.
So I got Africa in Johannesburg in a shelter the day that my other dog had died. And I always thought, she's a mongrel. But nobody really knew, no veterinary really could tell me a mongrel of what. And she had this long hair that grew up into dreads, but I cut them short because she's always with me and everything, so she had to be clean. So she was a very short-haired dog with this curly hair, blah, blah. And then I go into Tibet, and she comes to me all over this Africa and everywhere, and into the aeroplanes. So by the time she died,
Basically, she smuggles her into planes, like across countries, across
I
borders.
smuggled her everywhere.
It was incredible.
And she came during the pilot. So by the time she died, she must have done 500 hours on the aeroplane at least.
Nice.
Helicopters. She even came on the hand glider.
Oh.
Sweet. So then in Tibet, they have this small dog called Lhasa Apso, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't even, and there was no Google then, so they give you something and you can't read it up. You don't know what it is until. And everybody was telling me, was scared that it would be stolen, this dog, because it's a Lhasa Apso, and Lhasa Apsos are the reincarnation of a lama that has committed a sin in his past life. And so they reincarnate in these small dogs until they can clean up their karma and go back to being lamas.
By doing a kora, which is the walk.
By whatever.
Oh, whatever. Oh,
means.
okay.
And but in Tibet, there are all these circumnavigation, these pilgrimages that you walk around
Koras.
called kora, which help to clean the previous lives. So there is one particular kora which is very, very difficult around an entire mountain in the middle of Tibet,
Mount Kailash.
Mount Kailash, that is supposed to clean 99% of your past lives. So then I take Africa and we go and walk this kora. And everybody's telling me about she's being a Lhasa Apso, and I'm going, yeah, but I really don't believe them. And then I discover I meet two Lhasa Apso breeders from two different sides of the world, and they all confirm, without me even asking. They looked at the teeth, because Lhasa Apsos have got something with their teeth, and this and that and the other, and this is a thoroughbred Lhasa Apso.
Lhasa Apso. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Born from Joburg to Tibet, its motherland, to walk a kora to cleanse 90% of it. I don't believe in woo-woo stuff, but I mean, that's pretty cool
That's
woo-woo.
incredible. And the way she got me in that shelter, I didn't want the dog at that point, but my lover had brought me there wanting me to have a dog, but I didn't. So I was walking really fast, and then I kind of saw, and I stopped. She stopped me on my track. She did this all over the world. Everybody always stopped to look for her and look at her. But did me, and somehow she chose me, I think. She knew already what was going to happen.
God, I wish I had a smart dog like you. Useless.
And then the last Africa, can I say the last?
Yeah.
So Africa got out of this whole Asian trip. We are between China and Pakistan. Of course, I don't have the papers. So then I needed to leave China, not to enter Pakistan. So I'm in a bus full of Pakistanis. And the bus parks in front of the passport office. And my thinking is we go inside, we come back into the bus, and we go, usually there is a distance, right? Then you enter the next country. So I leave the dog in the bus with my stuff, and then I go to do the passport, and they usher us through the building to the other side. And now we are in Pakistan, and the bus is in China.
Yeah.
And I can see through the wire the police, the military marching into the bus looking for stuff.
Yeah.
And so I scream, Africa, Africa, Africa. And by now I've got all the Pakistanis around me. And Africa, so I scream, and the militaries are going up one stamp, she coming down the other, and she starts running towards us. What,
across the border?
Across the border. And all the Pakistani, come on, come on, come on.
Oh my God.
I swear. And then she launched herself across the border.
Oh God. What a...
Everybody was like, yeah. And then eventually we are on top of the mountain. So we come down with the bus, and the first village I decide I get out here, right? So out of the blue, I just go down, and he leaves me nowhere, and I'm like walking, and somebody goes, you are the Italian that
Yeah, everyone knew.
Everybody knew that down the valley.
My God. I mean, okay, so basically the reason I know a lot of this is because, one, we're good friends, but two, Taruna is writing a book. And I have had the pleasure of reading it so far once, but I'd like to read it again because she's been spending the last 2 years. Oh God. So yeah, the last 2 years, there's another story. I mean, I just can't get over all your adventures. So sadly, Africa, of course, died in India, and that broke you, didn't it? And,
Yeah, it broke me a lot.
and she's still not ready
to get another one.
No,
Really, but
still
I
not.
want one and everything.
But,
Yeah.
you know, she continued doing her thing. As I mentioned earlier, she joined Osho's cult for 11 years.
Cult.
Cult, yes. 11 years. And then basically we became friends when Taruna moved to Thailand, to Chiang Mai. But what, how many years ago did you move here?
I moved here about 6 years ago from Bali. I was living in Bali then.
So then the pandemic. So off
And then
Taruna goes.
I got stuck in Goa.
She went to Goa for a holiday.
2 weeks, I was supposed to be 3 weeks on holiday. I take a little trolley, my bad computer, I leave everything here, and I get stuck. I saw it coming, so I moved my ticket in advance, but the company moved my ticket because they were rerouting in India. It was being rerouted everywhere. So they gave me the new ticket on the very day that India declared the curfew. And I only got to know the day before, by accident, by sitting in a table. So I couldn't leave. And so I had already checked out of my hotel, and I couldn't stay there. I had to find a room. So in one day, nobody wanted me because nobody knew what was going to happen. But it was supposed to be 1 day curfew. So I found an old friend offered me her house.
Yeah.
They were in France. But of course there was no food, no nothing. And I thought, okay, for 1 day, it doesn't matter, I'll starve. Instead, they, in the afternoon of that curfew, they extended it to 3 days and then to 5 days. And I didn't have any food.
She was beaten up. You went out to hunt for food.
I have no food.
She was
my
FaceTiming me,
ambassador,
weren't
the Goa governor, the various helplines were trying to deliver food, but I was in a particular area with various police junctions, and they weren't letting anybody in. So no, they were trying, and they would almost be there, and then they would have to turn back.
I remember FaceTiming you, and you showed me, and there was like that much rice left you had in your hand, and a lime, and half a chili or something, and that was your food for the foreseeable future. And you were crying, and I
started going out looking for food. I got badly beaten by the police, and she found me crying over this. Without any salt, and of course I had burnt it because this little bit of rice, and I'm so nervous. So that's it, and so I'm freaking out, and so she freaks out, and she starts phoning all her contacts, and I start getting telephone calls from people all over India, which of course at the time were annoying because I am on WhatsApp trying to answer all these helplines, trying to find out how to get food locally. And it's nothing that even people, my friends in Goa couldn't help me, never mind somebody in Bangalore. But I was always nice. Oh, thank you, but really you can't do nothing. This is in Goa. What
Sorry, I called everyone I knew.
Somebody, one of the people you called, found someone living in my village. And so he came at 3 o'clock at night in the darkness, And he gave me over the gate this little plastic bag, half a bag of chickpeas and half a bag of rice, delivery from Chiang Mai. Can you believe it? In the middle of a pandemic, police beating everybody. I'm starving, and I'm really like thinking I cannot. If it goes longer, I can't have the strength to go look for food, right?
So happy that you got that.
Oh my God.
That was a big moment. Yeah, and so she was stuck there for 2 years, during which time Taruna sat down and wrote her memoirs. Well, I mean, you started a lot of it beforehand, but you spent a lot of time working on it, right?
And I made the website, and I opened the Facebook page.
Taruna runs this Facebook page, Simonetta Taruna Gatto. You really should check it out. It's got sort of vignettes of history that she writes about every single day, from just fascinating things around the world, historically and culturally. But if you like her stories, and who doesn't, right? I mean, I could listen to them all day. You've got to read her book. That's where we're going with all of this, you know. I mean, where are you with your book now? Tell us.
It's I've written a book about I've called it A Love Affair with the Unknown, and this is a book about the Indian journey, the 2-year Indian journey, and I've divided it into 2 volumes. So I'm only doing the first one, and it's a standalone, and it's about the journey from India to Nepal through the whole of Tibet until I go down into the Taklamakan Desert, right?
It's absolutely
So
extraordinary.
it's this whole Tibetan Himalayan mountain trip. There's a lot of discovery, also historical about Tibet, the past, history, things that very few people know even today.
And pure adventure.
And a lot of pure adventure. And also, because I traveled slowly, I wanted to acclimatize, get to know the locals, I wasn't in a hurry. So people I met, it's all dressing up like a Tibetan, so I get involved, and I met a guy who was sourcing religious stuff, so I was working as his mule, and he was always giving me treasures and letters and documents to run past the police blocks, and
smuggling her hashish for her
stuff.
personal
And then the big
consumption.
hitchhike was very adventurous, and I wouldn't have survived it if I hadn't done Africa before. And I would have died. Yeah.
I mean, you must have been. Was it worth it? Obviously, it was. But were there moments where you thought, "Why am I here? What am I doing?"
A lot of moments. No, once I started, and when you are on the move, you don't question it. You just have to find a way to go forward, right? You don't hurt yourself by, what's the point?
But female travelers, I mean, I'm constantly aware. I mean, who hasn't had a close brush with something horrible, right? It's terrifying. And for you to put yourself out there year after year.
But I traveled because I realized in Africa, that this exact situation, that I am alone, and in a series of circumstances that I would never experience at all.
Yeah.
So I'm stretching my limits. And if I'm dealing with it on my own, without even observers, witnesses, I really get to know who really I am and what my value is.
So was this a journey of self-discovery, or was it a journey of discovery?
It was a journey of discovery, of the outer and inner discovery, for sure.
Yeah.
So I became aware that this world is changing, tourism is taking over. I need to really run fast, because it's going to be all the same soon, right? And there was this also other thing, that I could become a better person. I could create myself, be the person I wanted to be, but I had to know myself. And I realized that in the West, I'm too busy doing appointments and commitments and busy to kind of see how I'm reacting. And also, I'm in a trouble and I phone you, or I come here for a glass, or, so I'm not really sitting. And meantime, that whole process of being on your own out there, where you have to be careful not to be raped, so you're always, in a sense, very focused. Although I was smoking and doing everything and drinking, I drank my way through Africa.
Really?
In the shabins, dancing like crazy, always, every night. And always I went, before I chose the shabins, which are the side way to run away, so that I would run away when the man got too hot, and I always got it at the right moment, because I never.
Then I've never asked you
would come and knock on my door and everything, but I was like, oh, some moments, but mostly I did, I was enjoying.
Yeah. And you filmed a lot of it as well.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
took
gonna-
a lot of pictures.
Are you going to do anything with all of that? You know, because you were telling me that you went to some tribes and you filmed some ceremonies.
Later I tried, when I was in India, I went to and 2000 came and the electronic things. So then I studied electronic filmmaking, and I did a few documentaries, none of which saw the light of day. One of them was about an amazing in Lesotho, the women's, and it was a story revolving about various women around the mill. In the mill was an Afrikaner family, but liberal. They had moved to Lesotho long before apartheid because they didn't like apartheid.
Right.
Very nice people, and they, but they were the ones that were gonna link all the stories together with an interview. And the ladies that I got were, for example, I got involved, for example, the bishops of a particular church, which would be bishops. And then they allowed me to film their married woman dance, which happened in a tiny little room. I bought a pile of crates of beer. We had these big tambours. Only women. They started completely naked. And they had these little raffia skirts with the thing. And it was really sexual dances, like mimicking the sexual act and singing, while our men are in the South African mines, we here are having fun. This kind of thing.
Yeah.
And literally coming in front of the camera to show the pussy, and like as they were getting more drunk.
And you said they had a sort of a labia thing going.
And they were having this labia. The Lesotho women pull their labia, and they just pull it and release. So when it releases, it becomes a little corkscrew thing, and it dangles a little bit. So I managed to film a few. Of course, I had to show mine every time, and they were always like not impressed.
No, what's
there? Nothing. And they let me film it because how do you know? Like I would say, is it? Do you do that labia thing, meeting new woman? And they will grab me and take me to a room, close the door. How do you know? What do you want? Because I had a Lesotho boyfriend. Okay. I show you mine, you show me yours.
Oh my God.
So I filmed all
weird,
of this, but then it didn't make it into anything because that South African guy dropped of a heart attack out of nothing while he was cooking a sauce for dinner. And so all this weaving together, and we were all so heartbroken. I left South Africa. And that
Have you been back to South Africa?
I went back many times, and now I haven't been back for a while, and I really miss it.
We could obviously keep going for days and days, and we do.
We do.
So where are you at now? Tell us where you're at now.
So now I'm I am working with an editor who is also a literary agent specializing in travel books, to refine this work that I've made and to present it to literary agents.
And until her book is published, at which time you'll
I am
be
in the
buying
meantime trying to gather followers to show to the literary agents by running this Facebook page, which is very interesting because
It is.
It's very eclectic subjects and always a little bit historical from all over the world.
So
I'm learning a lot of it. I'm actually loving it.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
It's really me.
Yeah,
That's
just
kind
little
of-
essays. Simonetta
about
Gatto.
everything.
Right. So I think we've covered just the tip of your many adventures. But if you see her around town, she's always good for a gander.
As soon as we close, I go, I should have said this.
I know. But we can still. Okay. Anything I've forgotten?
No.
No.
It's all right.
Right. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much. And
Thank
Taruna,
you.
you're going to go off to Italy soon, I
Yes.
believe. So we won't be seeing her for a few months, but follow her on Facebook, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Sawasdee-ka.
Follow the name underneath
Say
there.
goodbye. Mwah. Bye.